Okay, so today we're tackling a question that keeps popping up. With AI like ChatGPT getting so good at writing code,
Yeah,
does it really even make sense anymore for kids to learn programming?
it's a really relevant question right now.
Definitely. And we've been digging into some really interesting perspectives from Stefania Druga. She's a researcher at Google DeepMind, and importantly, the creator of this AI education platform called Cognoments.
Right. And her argument basically is that learning to code, still super important, crucial even.
But it needs a change.
Exactly. But the way we teach it, that needs a pretty significant update for the world we're living in now, this AI-powered world.
Okay. So our mission today, our deep dive, is really to get under the hood of why that shift is needed. And, what does this change in perspective actually mean for how we learn, how we work?
Yeah, that initial question, why teach coding if AI can just do it?
Yeah,
It really gets to the heart of a fundamental shift, doesn't it?
it does.
What's interesting is that the core value, like understanding how computers actually think, that's not disappearing. But the teaching approach, that definitely needs a makeover, as Druga puts it.
A makeover. I like that.
It's less about just churning out future professional coders,
Right, the old pipeline idea.
Yeah. And it's much more about building a new set of, let's call them thinking skills that are useful for pretty much everyone.
Exactly. That old formula, learn code, get a stable job. It just feels like it's becoming outdated, like really fast.
It is. Things are changing so quickly.
I mean, think about it. Half the homes in the U.S. apparently have voice assistants now. Kids are literally growing up asking Alexa or Google questions first.
Before they even ask a person sometimes, yeah.
And then there's the whole, the worry about students just using generative AI to, cheat on homework or tests.
That's a big concern for educators.
And it's not just us saying this. Even the World Economic Forum is pointing out that the traditional model, lecture, memorize, take a test, it's kind of losing its punch.
They're arguing we need to prioritize those thinking skills you mentioned.
Yeah, things like critical thinking, creativity, skills that AI maybe can't just replicate easily.
And that focus on thinking skills is absolutely key. Druga makes this really short point. If an AI can breeze through a test, no problem. Is that test actually measuring what a child truly understands or what they can genuinely do? Or is it just measuring recall?
That's a really good question. So what's the alternative?
Well, the interesting twist here is that learning tasks themselves should probably change. They should challenge kids to, experiment, to try things out, fail, try again.
Build those problem-solving muscles.
Precisely. The kind AI can't just simulate on command. And the tech industry itself, it's evolved so rapidly that just training someone for a specific job today isn't necessarily setting them up for success 5 or 10 years down the line.
Okay, so the ground is definitely shifting. And this is where Cognoments fits in, you were saying, as Druga's kind of practical answer.
Exactly. Cognoments is a fantastic, concrete example of this updated educational idea in action.
So what is it exactly? How does it work for kids?
Okay, so it's essentially a platform designed to be super kid-friendly, aimed at teaching the fundamentals of AI, and it's cleverly built on Scratch.
Oh, Scratch, the block programming thing. Lots of schools use that.
That's the one. So kids, typically between, say, 7 and 14, they're already familiar with dragging and dropping blocks. They can use Cognoments to learn programming concepts by doing stuff they actually find fun.
Like what?
Like creating their own video games or even programming little robots to do things. But here's the really crucial part. They don't just learn coding in isolation. They get direct, hands-on experience with how machine learning actually works. The core engine behind a lot of modern AI.
Okay. So it's not just if-then statements and loops. What kind of AI projects can kids actually build?
They can get pretty creative. For instance, they can program devices like Amazon's Alexa or maybe the little Cosmo robot using those same visual blocks.
So they're controlling real hardware.
Yeah. Imagine a kid programming a robot to figure out a maze they built. Or they could design games like a rock, paper, scissors game where the computer opponent actually learns from playing against you.
Whoa, really? So the AI gets better?
It gets smarter the more you play? Yeah. It adapts. They can also, train simple AI models to recognize images. So teaching the computer, this is a cat, this is a dog.
Okay, that's cool. Making the abstract tangible.
Exactly. And there are even more artistic possibilities, like building interactive installations where, say, the lights or sounds in a room change based on descriptions of someone's dreams. It's all about making AI feel less like magic and more like a tool you can understand and shape.
That sounds way more engaging than just, memorizing Python syntax. And I think I read something about a My Project effect with Cognites. What's that about?
Ah, yes, the My Project effect. It's a really neat insight. The idea is because the kids feel this real sense of ownership over the games they build or the robots they program.
It's theirs.
Right. It's their creation.
Yeah.
They become much more invested in figuring out how to actually make it work themselves. Drugan noticed they get this feeling of, okay, this is my thing. I want to be the one to build it. I don't want the AI to just do it all for me.
That makes sense. So the AI helps, but doesn't just give the answer.
Precisely. The platform might offer hints, maybe suggest which block could be useful next, but it deliberately avoids just handing over the complete solution. It encourages the kids to wrestle with the problem, to develop their own problem-solving chops.
Okay, so it's like AI as a supportive guide, not a cheat code.
You could say that, yeah, a learning companion.
And what have the results been like? Have they actually seen this approach make a difference in how kids learn or think?
Yeah, the outcomes reported are really positive, quite encouraging. There's a 3-year study, I believe, and it showed elementary school kids successfully doing things like programming robots to play rock, paper, scissors.
Wow, elementary school.
Yeah. And designing their own games with really diverse characters and storylines. But maybe the most significant finding, a real shift in perspective, was how the children's perception of technology changed.
How so?
They apparently moved away from this initial idea of, oh, computers are just smarter than me.
Which is easy to feel sometimes.
Totally. And they shifted towards realizing, wait, I'm smarter than the computer. I can tell it what to do. I can teach it things.
That's a powerful shift.
Huge. And they also saw really high engagement levels. Kids were apparently spending like up to 2.5 hours at a time just collecting data to train their little AI models, testing programs, tweaking things, sharing results with each other.
That's impressive focus.
It is. And interestingly, the research suggested that really getting the basics of AI wasn't necessarily tied to how much code they wrote or how much prior experience they had.
So what was it tied to?
It seemed to be more about the dialogue, the conversations they had with their peers, and that process of active experimentation, trying things, seeing what happens, talking about it.
Okay, so it sounds like Cognites helps kids build not just AI skills, but also those broader skills we talked about, creativity, critical thinking, by learning with AI.
That's the core idea, yes.
That really resonates. But what does this mean more broadly, like for the education system as a whole, or even for how businesses should think about training and skills?
Well, I think it has pretty profound implications, actually. It really suggests we need to step back and fundamentally rethink what the purpose of education is, and definitely how we measure success.
How so?
That traditional view of, say, programming education being primarily about job preparation, that's looking increasingly shaky in an era where AI capabilities are advancing so rapidly.
The CS degree guaranteed job formula isn't so certain anymore.
Exactly. Druga points this out quite directly, that old assumption is becoming outdated fast in today's, let's face it, pretty volatile job market. So the emphasis really needs to pivot.
Pivot towards
Cultivating those really adaptable, almost universal skills. Things like creativity, complex problem solving, that willingness to experiment and learn on the fly. These are skills that stay valuable even as AI gets more sophisticated.
skills that complement AI rather than compete directly with it.
Precisely. And it requires reframing how we even view AI itself. Not as this thing you just need to master, like learning French, but more as a potential partner in the learning process. A co-creator is the term Druga uses.
Co-create, I like that. An AI that prompts deeper thinking.
Yeah, rather than just being a machine that spits out quick answers, it's about designing learning experiences where the AI encourages you to think more deeply, to explore different angles.
So that idea you mentioned earlier, tests easily solved by AI should be reevaluated. That really points to valuing the process of thinking and creating, not just the final, potentially AI-generated answer.
Absolutely. It's a major shift in what we value. And look, this isn't just confined to K-12 schools or universities.
Right, it applies to the workplace too.
Right, definitely. These same principles extend directly into professional development, corporate training. Employees, more and more, are going to need the skills to collaborate effectively with AI systems to identify problems, brainstorm solutions, implement them.
It's becoming a core competency.
It really is. And Druga even mentions seeing young people, like teenagers, successfully launching actual businesses based on prototypes they built themselves using these kinds of tools and approaches. That signals a real change in what entrepreneurship and career paths might look like.
Okay, so just to recap this perspective shift we're talking about, it feels like we're moving, one, away from education just for market prep, towards building those core thinking skills, creativity, critical analysis that are more resilient to AI automation.
Yes, that's a big one, moving beyond CS degree job security.
And two, shifting how we see AI itself, from just a source of answers or a tool to automate tasks, towards seeing it as a potential partner, a collaborator, a co-creator in generating ideas and solving problems.
Exactly. AI as a thinking buddy almost.
And third, rethinking evaluation. Moving away from assessing simple tasks that an AI could do easily, towards evaluating the process, the creativity, the depth of thought involved.
Spot on. Valuing the how and why as much as, or maybe even more than, the what.
Which brings us back to the start, almost. In this new light, learning to program isn't just for people who want to be software engineers.
Not at all. It becomes about gaining this fundamental capability. How do you clearly define a problem? And then how do you systematically figure out the steps to implement a solution?
That's a skill everyone needs.
It's a critical skill for pretty much any professional navigating an increasingly AI-infused world, regardless of their specific field. 5 seconds of silence.
So thinking about all these shifts, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? How does this change your perspective on AI's role, both in learning and in your work? You know, if a child asks if they can use AI for their homework, how might you respond differently now, perhaps? And thinking about your own workplace, how is your company, or how should it be, adapting to build AI literacy? What does that even look like day to day?
Good questions to ponder.
And personally, what does this mean for your own continuous learning? What new skills or maybe mindsets might you prioritize? Because this really isn't just about schools, is it? It feels like it's about all of us figuring out how to live and work in this new era of, well, co-creation with AI.
Yeah.
What do you think? What are the core skills, the essential mindsets that will be most valuable as we move forward?